From our Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. Our top story tonight. The post-September 11, 2001 war on terror may have caused at least 4.5 million deaths in around half a dozen countries, according to a report published Monday. Brown University's Watson Institute for International and Public Affairs is studying the costs, casualties, and consequences of the war. The new report from its Costs of War project examines people killed indirectly by the war on terror in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Pakistan, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen. Stephanie Savelle is Costs of War co-director and author of the report. She said wars often kill far more people indirectly than in direct combat, particularly young children. In a place like Afghanistan, the pressing question is whether any death can today be considered unrelated to war. The report reviews the latest research to examine what has led to an estimated 3.7 million direct deaths in post-September 11th war zones. The total death toll in these areas is estimated to be at least 4.6 million. The report found a majority of indirect war deaths occurred due to malnutrition, pregnancy, and birth-related problems. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says there has been real progress on advancing religious freedom worldwide, despite obstacles. On Monday, Blinken said adherents and civil rights groups worldwide have been demanding their rights, and in some cases, government to listen. He noted advances in Belgium, which formally recognized its Buddhist minority, Canada and the EU's decisions to create offices to combat Islamophobia, and Brazil codifying religious freedom guarantees for Afro-Indigenous groups. But the top U.S. diplomat said in some cases, governments have not only continued to restrict religious freedoms, but have also increased repression. This is by targeting religious minorities using torture, beatings, unlawful surveillance, and re-education camps. Other forms of discrimination involve excluding religious minorities from certain professions or forcing them to work during times of religious observance. Rashad Hussain is the U.S. Ambassador at Large for Religious Freedom. He cited 6 nations as countries of particular concern: Russia, China, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, India, and Burma. He said Russia continues to detain, physically abuse, and torture Jehovah's Witnesses, Crimean Tatars, Muslim groups, Falun Gong, and evangelical groups. Hussain said the Chinese government has maintained repression of religious minorities, including the imprisonment and banishing of Muslim Uyghurs to re-education camps. While he recognized efforts within Saudi Arabia to foster greater inter-religious dialogue, practicing faiths other than Islam in the kingdom remains illegal. Hussain also noted that in India, there has been extreme hate speech against Muslims, while the Burmese regime continues to repress the Rohingya population. The Holland Foundation, a Wikileaks fundraising group, has hired a law firm to lobby the U.S. Department of Justice. This is on behalf of Wikileaks founder Julian Assange. Holland engaged Squire Patton Boggs to lobby First Amendment issues related to the publication by journalists of classified information. This comes after Attorney General Merrick Garland announced revisions in October 2022 to the DOJ's regulations regarding obtaining information from the media. The revisions are meant to provide more protections for members of the news media from law enforcement. Assange is currently in prison in the UK after his 2019 arrest under a U.S. warrant. He faces extradition to the U.S., where 18 counts of illegally obtaining, receiving, and disclosing classified information charges await him. UK Home Secretary Priti Patel approved the extradition in June. Assange is appealing the order. If his appeal fails and he is convicted, the Australian citizen could serve up to 175 years in U.S. federal prison. People are accusing a Bellevue hospital employee of racism for trying to take a Siddiqui away from a young black man who already paid for it, the New York Post reports. A video posted Saturday shows a confrontation between the white woman and the man. In it, the woman tries to suggest the man is a threat to her and calls for help. The man can be seen holding onto the bike and repeatedly telling the woman that he's already paid for it. Eventually, the woman becomes calm and chooses another Siddiqui. Social media users blasted the unknown woman, a healthcare worker, with some calling for her to be fired. Josep Borrell, the European Union's foreign policy chief, said the bloc will act against the importation of Indian petroleum products that use Russian oil. It was a rare, explicit criticism of India's role in helping Russia evade Western sanctions amid the war in Ukraine. Borrell said the EU did not mind increased oil trade between Russia and India, but urged a crackdown on India reselling Russian oil in Europe as refined fuel, including diesel. India has emerged in the past year as a top buyer of Russian oil, following Moscow's full-scale invasion of Ukraine last year. Access to cheap Russian crude has boosted output and profits at Indian refineries. It has enabled India to export refined products competitively to Europe. In recent months, Reuters and Bloomberg reports have cited mounting evidence of Indian firms buying Russian oil, refining it, and selling it to Europe. Pakistan's army says perpetrators of attacks on military installations during last week's nationwide protests will be tried under the Army Act and the Official Secrets Act. Tensions erupted soon after the arrest of former Prime Minister Imran Khan. At least 8 people had been killed and more than 300 others were injured, including policemen, during the violent protests. A senior lawyer says the Army's statement clearly indicates those arrested will be tried in a military court. Those are authorized to try anyone who has committed offenses such as waging war against the state, causing any person injury or death, instilling terror or insecurity, and various other offenses. Pakistan empowered military courts to try civilians for terrorism-related offenses as part of its 20-point National Action Plan adopted in 2015. That was prompted by a terrorist attack at an army public school in Peshawar in 2014. Islamic banks meeting sees signing of agreements worth $5.4 billion. Details after the break, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. The Islamic Development Bank Group saw the signing of 77 financing agreements worth $5.4 billion for 24 member countries. This was during its annual meeting in the Saudi port city Jeddah, a 4-day event which started on Wednesday. It hosted dozens of agreements, panels, summits, and business-to-business meetings with the high-level participation of its member countries. The agreements aim to develop or cover operations and projects in various sectors such as health, agriculture, food security, transport, and humanitarian relief. 7 different agreements were signed on Friday to improve Afghanistan's health, childcare, education, water, sanitation, and food security infrastructure. Rising fertilizer prices will worsen the problem of agricultural commodity prices in coming years. That's according to Abdul Hakim Al-Wa'ir, the Assistant Director General of the Food and Agricultural Organization. Gas supplies and energy prices will affect fertilizer prices, and an expected fertilizer crisis will affect the final commodity price, he told Andalu Agency. After the start of the Russia-Ukraine war in February 2022, energy prices, especially natural gas, increased significantly, and Ukraine, which is a major grain supplier, began to see difficulties exporting grain products, and countries that depend on grain imports have faced a food shortage. However, he noted that as a result, whole communities, countries, systems, and institutions are redesigning their food security and food supply systems. He also said they are making other changes, including investing in and maximizing local production and diversified sources for international trade and importing food. Al-Wa'ir stressed that countries have become more aware of finding different suppliers in different regions to prevent them from becoming a victim of a regional crisis. President Joe Biden says the United States is leading democracies in a fight against autocracies to establish a peaceful international order. But his administration approved weapons sales to nearly 3/5 of the world's authoritarian countries in 2022. That's according to a new analysis conducted by Security Policy Reform Institute co-founder Stephen Semler and published Thursday in The Intercept. The U.S. has been the world's largest arms dealer since the end of the Cold War. Data released in March showed that the U.S. accounted for 40% of global weapons exports from 2018 to 2022. Semler said of the 84 countries codified as autocracies under the regimes of the world system in 2022, the United States sold weapons to at least 48 or 57% of them. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is calling on the international community to suspend Israel's membership in the UN for obstructing the implementation of UN resolutions and international law. Abbas spoke at a UN event Monday to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the Nakba, or the catastrophe, observed on May 15th. It marks the expulsion of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from their homes and lands in 1948 after the founding of Israel. The UN General Assembly passed a resolution on November 30, 2022, calling for the commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the Nakba. Abbas said the UN has adopted hundreds of resolutions since 1947 recognizing the rights of the Palestinian people, but not one resolution has been implemented so far. He He accused the U.S. and the U.K. of remaining silent against ongoing aggressions and refusing to hold Israel accountable for its occupation of Palestinian lands and construction of illegal settlements. He also called on the international community to shoulder its responsibility to protect the Palestinian people. UN Political Affairs Chief Rosemary DiCarlo called on Israel to end its occupation. She said, "We want to see an independent state of Palestine living side by side with Israel in peace and security, with Jerusalem as the capital of both states." In related news, the United Arab Emirates is under fire for celebrating Israel's Independence Day, or the Nakba, this month. The criticism comes amid Tel Aviv's renewed assault on Palestinians in Gaza and the continuation of its persecution in the occupied West Bank. Israel celebrates its Independence Day on what Palestinians call the Nakba, Arabic for catastrophe, of 1948. That's when Zionist militias forcefully expelled more than 750,000 Palestinians from their homes to ensure the creation of Israel. The performance in the UAE comes 3 years after Abu Dhabi normalized relations with Tel Aviv in 2020 as part of the Abraham Accords. Sudan, Bahrain, and Morocco are also part of those normalization accords. Israel is making serious efforts to also make such a deal with Saudi Arabia. Activists and social media users condemned and reacted in outrage to the performance and the Emirates' part in it. A new photo exhibit in Qatar's capital, Doha, shows what life is like for Rohingya refugees. The award-winning images are being exhibited at Taswir, a biennial photo festival. The photographs were taken by Omal Khair, Dil Kayas, and Azimul Hassan, who are all Rohingya refugees. They capture daily life at the world's largest refugee camp at Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. The three photographers have been documenting life at the camp since becoming media fellows with the Fortify Rights NGO and the Doha Debates platform in 2018. "I want to tell the world the situation of my people in the refugee camp," 20-year-old Hassan told Al Jazeera over the phone from Cox's Bazar. "It's a dream come true for me," he added, referring to the exhibition running at M7, a fashion and design hub, until May 20th. Before we end today's news, I'd like to make a special request. It takes our team a combined 55 hours of work daily to produce this news for you. It is news with a unique perspective, and you will find it only here. Sound Vision is a not-for-profit organization which produces it, and like PBS and NPR, it depends on your donations. Please visit MuslimNetwork.tv to donate now, or click on the link below to donate. Thank you. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit MuslimNetwork.tv. Salam and good night.